An amazing day of college football featuring landmark wins, historic wins. Tennessee, it's your day. Michigan, it's your day. Clemson and others. TCU, yes, your day. But you know what? The team of the day probably flew right under your radar. How about those Colorado Buffaloes? They will not go 0-12 this season. The Colorado Buffaloes won in overtime over Cal. I'm sure you all watched every single play of that tilt. Colorado wins in overtime over Cal, and the Buffs will not go winless this season. Welcome to the Voice of College Football and our weekly college football wrap-up show on a Saturday night as we go live with all of you to review Week 7. And what a week it was. Yes, the Buffs win. Elsewhere in the Pac-12, we've got quite a showdown going on at Rice-Eccles Stadium with currently USC still up on Utah 42-35. This one is in the final 10 minutes of the game. So we will keep track of that. And, of course, join our guys, Tim, Tony, and Rick on the USC postgame show over on the USC channel. But, again, USC could come up with a huge win if they hold off Utah, a game that looked like it might be a blowout early, but the Trojans making all sorts of plays on offense, but not on defense. And Utah hanging in there, and they've got the ball in the red zone on USC right now, 42-35. So let's be in on this one. 3:19 to play. Washington State, Oregon State, they're playing right now as well in a tight one. And yes, in the Big 12, TCU with a huge, enormous win in the Big 12. They came down from 17 down in the second quarter to win in overtime over the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. Max Duggan and company get the win for TCU. Texas lucks out. Yes, I said Texas lucks out. Yes, they made certain plays. They get credited with the win. But if Xavier Hutchinson does not drop a would-be touchdown pass with less than a minute left to play, Texas probably goes down. Texas did not make a play on the football. It was Xavier Hutchinson, one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12, leaving his feet, dropping a throw downfield from Decker. And Iowa State then fumbled the next snap. Decker, the quarterback, fumbles, and Texas hangs on over Iowa State 24-21. Utah continues to drive inside 3 minutes to get to that tying touchdown. All right. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Oklahoma. How about that? They show some unity. They show some fight, some tenacity. They come back and they win a big one under the leadership of Dylan Gabriel back off the bench, off of concussion protocol. The defense not fixed, though. Brent Venables has not fixed the Sooners defense. They win over Kansas 52-42. On to the SEC. Will Levis, Chris Rodriguez have big games. And despite let's introduce you to one Manuel Forbes. Who is he? Who is Manuel Forbes? He might be the best player playing for Mississippi State, a team that was 5-1 coming into this game against Kentucky on the road. Picked off his 5th pass tonight. It was a pick 6. He has 5 pick 6s in his career, but Kentucky comes back and they win this one in a low scoring game early, but exciting toward the finish, and Kentucky wins that one over Mississippi State. Big win for the Cats. LSU, talking about offense. LSU found an offense, 42 points in the swamp against Florida. They get out to the big lead. They hang on over the Gators. Ole Miss, more big points in Oxford as the Rebels knock off Auburn 48-34. Ole Miss is 6-0. Bama's coming up. And how about the Heisman winning performance possibly for one Hendon Hooker? What a game. Game of the day from a historic standpoint, from a national championship and SEC title standpoint, and from just Tennessee getting off the schneid after losing to Alabama every year under the Nick Saban era. And Tennessee with a last-second field goal after Will Reichard missed for Bama. Hooker down the field. Brew McCoy makes the exceptional catch to set up the field goal. And Tennessee, Rocky Top. Wow. 52-49. Illinois is 7-1. They have the number 1 defense in college football. They knocked off Minnesota as a touchdown underdog at home. Vegas not respecting Illinois. Nobody's respecting Illinois. They continue as an underdog to win these football games. Touchdown underdog at home. They beat Minnesota. Chase Brown, the leading rusher in the nation, had 41 carries in this game. This is Brett Bielema ball going back to Arkansas and Wisconsin. It's working at Illinois. They may march on to the division championship, but of course they've got a date coming up with Purdue. Purdue wins a high-scoring affair at home against Nebraska. They hang on for the win 43-37. Michigan dominates Penn State. Forget the score in this one. It did widen late in the fourth quarter, 41-17, but it was only a one-score game going into the fourth quarter, but Michigan was clearly the better team. Dominant rushing attack. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. The offensive line was spectacular, and Michigan much better than Penn State today, winning that game. And finally in the ACC, Syracuse, continue to make fun of Syracuse, continue to say that they shouldn't be ranked. They took on NC State. They won the game. Syracuse wins 17-9. They hold NC State to single digits, setting up a Syracuse matchup as an undefeated team. It's 6-0 for the first time since 1987. Syracuse is 6-0. They have not defeated a top 20 team, top 25 team since 2018 until today against NC State. Syracuse travels to Clemson to take on undefeated Clemson. Of course, the Tigers too much for Florida State, although the Seminoles gave it a game, 34-28 in Tallahassee. And finally, my last viewing of the night was just seconds ago. I had to check out Duke and North Carolina. Duke and North Carolina. Poor Duke. Poor Duke. They outplayed North Carolina. They were up 35-31. They had the ball in the red zone to ice the game, to finally possibly score a touchdown, as Utah just did, to most likely tie the game. And I guess that's going to be a 2-point conversion. Yes, 43-42, 48 seconds left to play. I do have USC in 3.5. So to me, big day for the picks. Hope you get them in Patreon. 15-7 against the spread last week. I believe I'm looking at 10-5 tonight against the spread. That's 25-12. I'm red hot, torrid against the spread the last 2 weekends. Okay. Duke. They could have iced the game with a touchdown. They could have widened it to a touchdown to at least secure the tie in overtime. They missed a chip shot field goal. North Carolina comes all the way down the field with Drake May. They score a touchdown. The receiver was in by that much with like 12 seconds left in the game. Actually, Duke, with 12 seconds left, throws a ball behind the defense down to the 47. If they could have gotten one more completed pass, they would have had a shot at another field goal to go to overtime. I was pulling for Duke. Got nothing against North Carolina. Just wanted the Duke story. Duke possibly going to the ACC championship game, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. They lose a heartbreaker to Carolina. And you know what? We went through all the conferences, and you know what? Notre Dame, you don't play in a conference and you suck. Oh my goodness. Stanford can't beat anyone. They haven't won a game against an FBS team in a complete calendar year. Stanford football is completely awful, sucks. But you know who they're better than? Notre Dame. Notre Dame, you're pathetic. You lost to Stanford. Stanford. Check out the play from last weekend when Stanford lost to Oregon State. They blew a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. The game-winning touchdown for Oregon State. The two Stanford defensive backs look like they're in junior high. And that's the team that beat Notre Dame tonight. Notre Dame, I rarely say this. I rarely go to this level, but you are a disgrace. You're pathetic, Notre Dame. I thought you were getting better. Beat North Carolina, beat Cal, had a nice game against BYU. But that performance, Marcus Freeman, look at yourself in the mirror. You just lost to Stanford. And I would love to credit Stanford for beating a decent team. What I think is a decent team still. I somehow still think Notre Dame's a decent team because I do believe in the talent rankings. I do believe in them. Had a few back and forth with some people that don't believe in the talent rankings. You don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. You have no clue of what you're talking about. I'm not saying they're infallible. There's coaching, there's development, there's all those things, but you got to start with the talent base. Probably like 50 to 70% of the equation. So Notre Dame still has a decent team. They have players. So that's pathetic. That I don't know how else to slice it, because I would want to credit Stanford with a win, but they obviously are awful. They can't beat teams in the Pac-12 that are horrible. They haven't won an FBS game in over a year. I could go on about this all night, but I would just be repeating the same thing and just saying Notre Dame's pathetic. Notre Dame, okay, given the talent level on the team, Notre Dame is officially the most pathetic team in America. The most pathetic team in America is Notre Dame. Put it down. Nobody rivals them right now. If you put together the talent versus what they should be doing and what they are doing, that was awful. They've lost now to Marshall, and I think Marshall continues to lose to a bunch of crappy teams, and now Notre Dame loses to, yes, Stanford. I'll drop the link. Give me a call. We've got USC with the ball at their own 15-yard line, 32 seconds left. And again, I could care less what happens at this point, except we don't want to pick 6. We've got the USC cover here. I did pick them to win, though. So I would love USC actually to win, but nobody checks out my record straight up against the money line. It only counts for most people against the spread. And with as good as USC was playing for most of this game, and especially in the first quarter, for as much as they were the better team in this game in the first quarter, this is not a good showing that they're losing this game now. They are going to lose. Utah has stolen this game. Utah has stolen this game. All right, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Should have already done that. My apologies. But here comes the link. Join the show. Kyle Pickett, I see your super chat. I am grateful for it and will acknowledge it in just a second. Did I mention that Notre Dame is pathetic? They are the most pathetic team on the planet. We'll get in here and talk about your team. They're awful. Kyle Pickett, thank you so much. Appreciate the super chat contribution. Thank you so much for that. And USC has lost the game, depending on what the flag is. Kyle Pickett for the Voice of College Football. Another great weekend of college football. Absolutely. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. We will check the penalty. I can't believe with all that football I just mentioned, and Darrell, I will get to you in 5 seconds. With all the football that I just mentioned, I just went through basically any meaningful game in all the conferences that Wisconsin and Michigan State, that's usually a marquee game in the Big Ten. Shoot, it was the first Big Ten championship game. It's not worth talking about. I just mentioned that because I saw the score on the bottom line, Michigan State, Wisconsin. But that's like the 50th most important game today. All right. We kick off with the real MVP. What's going on, man?
It's going good. How about you?
I am doing well. I can't believe how bad Notre Dame is. And I saw quite a bit of the second half of your Kentucky team. I was impressed.
Yeah, I was worried for a moment when Will Levis had another injury happen to him. Yes. Kentucky's offensive line, I don't want to say non-existent, but below average for sure this year. I'm worried for Will Levis's health going forward.
Well, they can run block. I know that.
Well, that's more of a Chris Rodriguez thing, in my opinion. The amount of sacks that Kentucky has given up this year has got to be in the 30s. I haven't looked, but it's got to be in the 30s. It just South Carolina, I think, was 126, 127, something like that in sacks, and Kentucky gave up 6 or 5 sacks against them. I'm worried for his health, man. I'll be honest, but hopefully everything's okay with him. Kentucky on a much-needed bye week for sure after dominating, I would say, Mississippi State. Mississippi State, I don't think really had a chance except for that one series where Will Levis went out.
Dominating?
Huh?
They dominated them?
Yeah, there wasn't a point in the game I felt like Kentucky was going to lose.
When it was 20-17 in the fourth quarter, that was domination.
Well, you got to remember the only reason it was 20-17 was because of the pick 6. It wasn't like Mississippi State was moving up and down the ball at all.
Yeah, they do count those, right?
They do count them, but I'm saying in the context.
Okay. All right. Okay, I got you.
So I wasn't worried. Is the point I'm trying to get across. And unfortunately, Kentucky's next opponent is Tennessee, Mark.
Maybe not. Maybe you're catching them at a good time.
Well, we play in 2 weeks. We're on a bye. Kentucky's on a bye.
Okay.
So Tennessee's a great team. Tennessee, I think, needs to be talked about as a national championship contender going forward. Would you agree with that?
Well, they are a national championship contender, technically speaking. Yes, they are one of about 8 teams that could win a national championship right now. I want to see that performance one more time.
So you're telling me you're not sold after they beat Alabama as a national championship contender? as a legit one, not a technically, as a legit national championship contender.
They did what Texas A&M did last year, right?
Well, Texas A&M had already 2 losses. They were inconsistent. Tennessee has been consistently good.
Yeah, and shoot, I've got them highly ranked. I was much way ahead of the curve on Tennessee. This is what some people don't realize with some of these rankings that I get ridiculed about. It also works this way. I'm way ahead of the curve on some of these teams. Tennessee, way ahead of the curve. Syracuse, way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve. So you don't have to sell me on Tennessee as being a good team. Just saying, if they give Georgia a good game, where's the game?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest.
At Georgia.
Somebody in the chat will tell us, I'm sure.
Regardless, I want to see them play Georgia. But yeah, I was, and not that they can't have a down game and maybe lose to Georgia by 20 points and still have a great season, be 11-1. That happens. We've seen it with many teams before. They have one bad game or just a letdown against, not a letdown like emotionally, but they just get whipped by one team. But you understand, this isn't, we could name all the typical teams that are on the elite level that do this all the time in terms of play at a high level against really good competition. This is the first time we've seen this from Tennessee.
No, what Tennessee reminds me of last year's Michigan team.
Yeah, from the standpoint of emergence. Yeah, I get that.
And I think people thought Michigan last year could win the national championship. I don't know how ever likely it was, but they were pretty dominant throughout the entire year. So I think that's where they should be. I don't think they should be the favorites, but I think right underneath Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama still is probably where Tennessee belongs.
That Michigan team, I'm not saying that this Tennessee team is necessarily better than the Michigan team last year, but they might be. I'm not saying that they are or aren't, but they are better equipped to win a national championship because they can win. You know, they just need to get enough out of their defense. Where Michigan had a better defense last year than Tennessee does now, but if Tennessee can just get enough out of their defense, they have the offense to outscore anybody.
Oh yeah, and their defense, Tennessee's defense has improved. I know they gave up 49 points to Alabama, but Alabama's still a really good football team, Mark.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. NC State, I'm not sure if you saw Devin Leary, the quarterback, is out for the remainder of the season. He has pectoral issues.
Yeah, I saw that.
What does this mean for NC State?
Well, based on their performance last week in the fourth quarter against Florida State, even though they came back because of defense. So, and then watching them a little bit today, they were like on my third screen, so I couldn't really analyze the game, but they've got a guy at quarterback. I think his name is Chandler. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, their backup quarterback, he runs around. He's a runner. They want to run him all the time. They're running draws with him. So their offense has been scaled down to, if they had to replay the entire season, they'd go 7-5.
Okay.
And I don't know who they have left. Obviously, they've already cleared Clemson, Syracuse, Florida State. So they've got Wake, they've got North Carolina. This is their second loss. Maybe they go 8-4.
Yeah, I think that's disappointing for what they were expected to do at the beginning of the year, but I think they're in the same position Kentucky is, frankly. If they lose their starting quarterback, I just don't see them being equipped to do much. But Mark, unfortunately, in my opinion, the Pac-12 has lost another playoff contender in Southern Cal. Going down to Utah. What does this game say more about Utah or Southern Cal?
Well, first off, I believe that you either predicted or you were just kind of high on USC after the last few weeks. Correct?
Yes, I was very high on you.
Yeah.
I was higher than most, I'll say.
They can still get to the playoff.
I mean, I don't see, unless of extraordinary circumstances, a one-loss Pac-12 championship getting it.
You just think that the committee is going to look more favorably on whoever in the SEC doesn't win the championship, whoever in the Big Ten between Ohio State and Michigan doesn't win the Big Ten championship. You think that those programs just have better schedules, more street cred, all of that is going to get a second Big Ten or SEC or both in the playoff over USC. And I get that.
Yeah. And yeah, you said 2 teams for the SEC. It might be 3 with Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. Because if you have Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia all at one loss, I feel like they all get priority over a one-loss Southern Cal team.
And a one-loss Clemson, if that happens. Now, Clemson seems to have cleared all the possible hurdles because over the last 3 weeks, they've beaten the 3 best teams in their division. But they do have Syracuse. That seems ridiculous, but they didn't blow out Florida State tonight. So they do have to deal with Syracuse, and they've got Notre Dame. And I know Notre Dame did. I don't know if you heard earlier, I went on a rant blasting Notre Dame. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it was a very passionate rant about a team that's most likely to go 7-5 or 6-6.
Well, it was just passionate because I don't care about Notre Dame. I have no investment in Notre Dame football, but maybe I just get annoyed at somebody screwing up one of my predictions. But I'm just like, seriously? They lost to Stanford. The last play of the game that Stanford lost to Oregon State last week, they had like 2 defensive backs look like Keystone Cops trying to like defend this pass and tackle this guy that ran in for the touchdown to win the game against Oregon State. And that team that they haven't won a game over an FBS opponent in over a year since the first week of October last year.
Mark,
and they play in the worst conference in America. Maybe not this season, but they have played in the worst conference in America. And this is the team that's beating Notre Dame.
Mark, if you want my theory about it, Notre Dame has looked good against Ohio State. They lost, I get it, but they look good. They look better than most people expected.
Sure.
They look good against BYU. They look good against North Carolina. Those were all the games people were pointing to saying Notre Dame needs it. Those are possible losses. And all the teams that everybody thought Notre Dame would beat down by 50 or 60 points, they're struggling against. I'm going to say this name as a reminder, Coach. Now, I'm not comparing him to it, but I'm just throwing it out there. Marcus Freeman has a little bit of a Scott Frost in him where
I love it.
They play up to the potential of their opponents and they play down to the potential of their opponents. It's giving me that type of vibe. Now, they're not on the one-score losing streak that Scott Frost was on, but the playing up and down to competition, I think, through 6 weeks of play is noticeable. And that falls on the coaching. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Any coach can let a game get away from him. You can name the coach, regardless of how great they are. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, etc. You know, it's a long career. They can't prevent everything. But this is 3 times in like 6 weeks. This isn't once or twice in a career. Marshall, Stanford, those are horrible football teams. And they should have lost to Cal. They could have lost to another bad football team that lost to Colorado today.
Right. It goes back to not playing to what you perceive your opponent to be. And that is, in my opinion, bad coaching. And another sign of bad coaching, Mark, is tons of penalties. And Nick Saban has had 2 poorly coached games this season.
I think 3. I think last week they had 1 million penalties, like 15 or 16, the Texas game and this game.
Okay, it might have been 3. Usually when it's Alabama, people give them benefit of the doubt. But the fact it's happened 2 or 3 times already this season. Are we just going to have to expect Alabama to give up this many penalties and this can't be corrected for whatever reason?
So I've watched these 3 games, especially the Tennessee game and the Texas game. I was hit and miss on the Texas A&M game. So the only penalty that like with Nebraska last year and the year before under the Scott Frost regime, they had this tendency to rack up false starts. Their offensive line could not, be focused enough. Like a lot of procedure penalties, they weren't coached well enough to line up correctly, understand the snap count and all that. That was a repeated trend with Nebraska football. The only trend that I've seen with Alabama, and it may be other penalties mixed in, is their secondary is getting torched and they have a ton of pass interference penalties.
Yeah, that one sequence where Alabama had like 4 straight penalties or 3 straight penalties, that's something I never thought I would see from a Nick Saban team.
Yeah, because always in the past we've seen if they pick up a penalty, and most coaches will tell you this, that they don't mind a certain amount of penalties because it speaks to being aggressive as a team, but focus penalties they hate. We weren't lined up correctly. We had a procedure, false start, jumped off sides. Those drive them crazy. Procedure penalties. If you're holding, you're just, in the process of whether that's a defensive hold or an offensive hold, that can be corrected. But yeah, you would see Alabama in the past, 1 penalty, and then everyone knows, okay, lock in, focus. We screwed up. Okay, we're back to 1st and 20. But yeah, that was a disaster. That one series, penalty after penalty after 4 penalties, and they're back in their own end zone.
Now, the final thing I'll ask, Mark, is are 3 of the top 5 teams from the SEC?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want as much SEC representation in the playoffs as possible. I don't think there's enough. So I want 3 teams in there, and tonight was a big step forward in that scenario. So Georgia, just go out there and beat Tennessee, and we'll be one more step closer.
Okay, before we let you go, I have to ask why, and before you answer that, so does it come under the category of you're just an SEC fan and you would love to see all the playoffs, or just because you believe it's the best conference, which it is, that you think that this system tends to let other teams in just to kind of balance out the representation, and you just simply want, hey, all 4 best teams in the country are from the SEC, just put them in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and yes. It's not my fault, Mark, that 3 of the 4 best teams happen to reside in one region in the country. And for some reason, it makes people upset. And as a fan of one of them team that's probably can never win the SEC or even compete in Atlanta, it's nice as a reminder still be like, oh, Kentucky's probably top 15 team. But we'll go 8-4 this year. So
yeah, so I would say yes. If you're going to nail me down to just 4, I would like to take it to 5, include Michigan. I think those are the 5 best. I would tend to also include Clemson right there with Michigan, but when they're barely beating Florida State, barely beating Wake Forest, and got lucky, very fortunate in that game, and really only played a strong 60 minutes against North Carolina State, they're really not that good. I tend to think that the 3 in the SEC and the 2 in the Big Ten are probably better than Clemson, and Clemson's next.
Right. And the thing that worries me is with Clemson is they've struggled more against worst teams. Wake Forest, in my opinion, would be the 10th, 9th best team in the SEC. And Clemson went down to the wire against them.
Yeah.
Florida State would be what, 12th in the SEC? And it was tied at halftime.
Yeah, I was trying to convince somebody the other day that some of the lesser teams in the SEC would go to the ACC. Oh, we had an ACC fan on here the other day that was talking up the Atlantic Division as the best division in football. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
No, that title could possibly belong to the SEC East this year. Could. With Georgia, Tennessee winning, Kentucky beating Mississippi State. The gap between the East and the West has closed significantly this year.
Yes. Vandy, Missouri, South Carolina.
So, hey, South Carolina's got their game against Texas A&M next week. If they win that game, that's a legitimate result.
Yeah, you're right.
So, Mark, thanks for having me on. Congratulations to all the teams who won today. Sorry if your team lost today, but there's always next week.
All right, man. Well, thanks for the call. Thanks for leading us off. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So just kind of worked out this way. We honored a real MVP with the Kentucky helmet, top shelf and center. And of course, Tennessee had probably the biggest win of the day, aside from Colorado. Colorado had the biggest win of the day. But we got Michigan up there as well. I actually took a little time. I took about 8 seconds to say, you know what? That would be a fairly decent representation of what happened today and who won big games. LSU, not necessarily, but they did win. All right, let's get to it. We got Michael on the line, and the Boilers got it done tonight against Nebraska. Michael.
How you doing, sir?
I am doing great. I enjoyed the college football today from noon all the way through. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yep, nice. So, no, just leaving the friendly confines of Broad State right now, so.
Oh, man, you're there?
Yeah.
All right, good for you.
Yep, not bad. Hey, I got to give kudos to Illinois, man, and stuff like that, playing a good game. But I do got to ask you this, so do you have an update on Tanner Morgan?
Do we have an update on Tanner Morgan? We do not. I'm not kind of in the business of like researching what beat writers do. So yeah. I don't. I haven't looked into Tanner Morgan's situation now.
Yeah, I got to ask you this about the Penn State. What surprised you more about the Penn State-Michigan game today? How they gave up 400 yards rushing? 418 to be exact?
Yeah, I was surprised by the final score. I was surprised. I was not surprised in any way. We did a reaction video on here and analysis, and I laid out why Michigan would win this game. And we get all of those. Michael, I'm going to put you on mute while I speak because it's annoying. So we pointed out all the reasons why Michigan would win this game, why it was a logical selection to take Michigan. They're at home. They have a definite home field advantage at the Big House. James Franklin is awful on the road against quality competition. Although the Penn State running game is significantly improved, bottom 5 in the nation last year, top 30 in the nation this year, 2 tremendous freshman running backs. They are freshman running backs. The offensive line is better, but just decent, significantly better, but that's only decent. The Michigan run game is elite. Elite because they've got elite players carrying the ball, elite offensive line. Huge disparity in just controlling the line of scrimmage. And that's what it was because Penn State can match Michigan everywhere else. Wide receivers, defensive backs, all that. The quarterbacks really, for a game in 2022, you don't see a game where the quarterbacks were as insignificant as they were in this game. They really weren't significant. Sean Clifford, the stat sheet's going to tell you 7 of 19. He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad at all. He was on his back all the time, running for his life. So the Michigan pass rush, we talked about that. That was the next. So we went through all the reasons why Michigan, despite there being equal talent, and I got blasted by a few people in the comment section that said, Mark, how you can say they've got equal talent? It's not even close. It was a blowout. And some knucklehead actually said that Michigan would win this game 99 times out of 100. Now, people don't even understand math when they make that kind of comment. So anyway, Michigan won the game. I didn't think it would be. I made it kind of a dumb prediction, even though I took Michigan to win the game. I didn't even give it that much thought. Took Michigan to win the game. I did take Penn State with the points. Even though that went against my gut. My gut was this is 31-17 range. So there we go. Michael, I will now unmute you so you can respond.
Yeah, I agree. I had Michigan winning the game 38-30 today, but
Okay.
it is what it is. But I'm trying to think who the other running back was besides Corum that went over 100 yards.
Donovan Edwards.
Okay. That man just whatever. But I don't know how much of the game you seen with Purdue and Nebraska tonight, or was you watching another game?
I saw 0. It's on my DVR.
All right. No, I was wanting to see what you thought about mocking me, but I'll let you watch the game and stuff like that first. But I got to ask you this: is Tommy Rees on thin ice in Notre Dame?
Well, based on what I've seen out of the Stanford defense this year, which I've done my best not to watch Stanford football, but that's only somewhat of a joke, that I just can't imagine any capable, decent, functional offense could only score 14 points against Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. He's working with a backup quarterback. We do have to understand that.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. No, with Wisconsin's loss to Michigan State in double overtime, which surprised me today, and stuff like that, I wonder if it'll probably be like the same way next week with Purdue, how they did it tonight with Nebraska and stuff like that, or do you think they might go air out more than running?
Wait a minute. Michigan State, okay, they beat Wisconsin. They're playing who next week?
Purdue goes to Madison next week.
Oh, Purdue, Wisconsin. So you're asking if Wisconsin's going to throw it more than they typically do?
No. I'm asking Purdue. Do you see them throwing more next week, or doing the basically almost like a 50-50 type deal tonight, considering Purdue went over 600 yards in total offense?
Well, I would think that Purdue's going to continue to do what they do, and that's they want to complement their passing game with a running game. They're a passing team, but I watched Jeff Brom's news conferences most of this entire season, and he's emphasized that they don't want to get too out of whack offensively. Even though they're a pass-oriented team with a great quarterback, they want to complement that with a run, and they want to be balanced and show teams that they can run the ball. So I would expect them, as long as the game's close, I would expect that if they run 70 plays, that 40 are going to be passes and 30 are going to be runs.
Mm-hmm. Which was pretty much what it was tonight and stuff like that. But I don't want to divulge everything and stuff like that. But is there any way we can fast forward to November 12th?
No, we don't want to do that, Michael. We want to embrace the college football season. Embrace it.
I know.
We have few precious games here. They only play 12 games.
I know. I'm just chomping at the bit with Purdue going to Champaign.
Calm yourself down, Michael. Just relax. Who's Purdue playing next week?
They play Wisconsin?
Yeah, they're playing Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yes. When have you not been excited in the past about playing Wisconsin?
Several years, but hopefully next week will be the time that they break the 18-year streak.
They've lost to Wisconsin 18 years in a row?
The last time they won was 2003.
I didn't realize that. And you're excited about November 12th?
I know. I'm chomping at the bit. But I know, and if Coach Schiller was here, he would squarely kick me in the butt saying, it's one game at a time.
So you know what? I'm going to be Joe Tiller tonight. I'm going to be Coach Tiller, and I'm going to kick you in the ass, and I'm going to tell you, Michael, that you should be psyched up for this Wisconsin game next week.
Believe me.
Years? Even if
Believe me, I am psyched up.
Even if the Badgers were 0-7 right now, Michael, you should be fired up for that game. And never wish away a college football weekend. We only get 12 of these. We only get 12.
I know. I am. I guess I'm putting the cart before the horse.
Yes, relax. November 12th will be here. It'll be 15 degrees colder than it is right now. We don't need to wish that on anyone. No.
Sure.
It'll get here.
I got to ask you this, though. How impressed was you with Hendon Hooker, considering he had a couple of flub-ups there with the game and didn't have enough to lead Tennessee back to beat Alabama?
Yeah. Well, the whole mesh point play where they kind of screwed up and he really that's on him. He's the quarterback. How impressed am I with Hendon Hooker? Like through the roof, through the ceiling. I've been impressed with this guy for, 7-6 last year. I was the guy talking about Hendon Hooker all the time last year and how good he is. So I'm a big Hendon Hooker fan. There's a lot of high intensity, high leverage moments in that game. So any quarterback's going to make a few mistakes, and I think the guy's exceptional. Yeah,
and I would say both him and Young had a good game stuff today, but I got to give it the credit because Tennessee made the plays when they have to. But no, like I said, I'm coming down, Mark, one game at a time.
Yes.
But no,
enjoy this, Michael. You might be headed to Indianapolis.
Yeah, not bad. All right, I'm gonna let you go and stuff like that. Like I said, I wish you can do after the show tonight, put the top 25 that actually makes sense together. But I know you gotta get some sleep and stuff first. So,
Michael, you always crack me up with that request each week to get the top 25 out. It'll be here before you know it. We'll get to it.
I know. All right, hey Mark, thanks, man. Have a great one.
Well, I'm glad that you got to enjoy the game tonight, Michael, and good luck to your Boilers throughout the rest of the season. Would love to see them in Indianapolis.
Yep, and hopefully, if things go right, maybe I can get lucky to go. I'm going to the Illinois. Okay, I'm stopping. I'm going to stop.
No, that's all right. You're going.
Hopefully, I can get to the Wisconsin game next week.
Is the Illinois game at home?
No, it's in Champaign.
Oh, going to Champaign?
Yeah.
Nice little trip from West Lafayette to. So how long is that for you?
About an hour and a half.
Okay, not a bad deal.
Not bad. All right, sir. Have a good one.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for the call.
See ya.
Kyle Pickett, thank you so much for your contribution. What do we have here, Kyle? Kyle, you disappear on us for a long time, we just hope everything's good. And by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, not to put a damper on the show, but I asked this the other night about George. Does anybody know what's going on with George? We haven't seen George in quite some time. Kyle says, who had the best Mayhem moment this weekend? Mayhem moment. Kind of like App State against whomever they played. Was it Troy when the crazy Hail Mary? Like, yes. Well, that was Tennessee. That was Tennessee. Look at the field. Look at the orange, the sea of orange, 100,000 people. They haven't beaten Alabama in 16 years. 0-29 against top 10 teams. 0-18 against top 5 teams. 0-16 against Tennessee. All right, let's get to it. I am looking forward to this conversation. Got our buddy Will on the line. Will, I am feeling sorry for you tonight. Your Irish go down 2 defeat.
Fire Tommy Rees.
Okay, you answered our question right there that was asked by somebody earlier. Yes. Okay.
It's incompetence. It's pure incompetence.
2 touchdowns against Stanford.
I'm sure Tommy Rees, he's smart. He's a smart guy. He overdoes it. Like, we do these plays and every single thing has to go right. And they're too complicated. Just bread and butter, run Audric Estime. Drew Pine, he also hasn't gotten Drew Pine to have any confidence in anyone besides Michael Mayer. So it's like every time it throws to him, we don't know what the heck's going to happen. I don't want to say I'm giving up on the season, but I feel like I'm giving up on the Clemson USC games after that. Because if we can't score more than 2 touchdowns against Stanford, how are we going to score against Clemson?
if you were a fan of any other team that played in a conference and you said, I'm giving up on the season, I would know what that meant. But you need to explain to me, what's that mean? You're not going to watch the games?
Well, I'm going to have very little confidence that we will win.
Okay.
I do have tickets to the Clemson game, though. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if the real MVP's theory is correct, then you will be up for that game. Notre Dame will be up and will play well.
I just hope we can. I know the defense will be up. I just don't know, even if the offense guys are up. Like, what's the play calling going to be?
Yeah, let's look at your box.
Oh, my dad already got the plane tickets, Daniel. I'm going, but yeah.
Drew Pine, a measly 13 for 27 for $151.
The first half, it was 4 for 12 at one point in the first half.
Yeah, and none of your backs got more than 8 carries.
Audric Estime was good when we needed him to be in short yardage situations, but he did cough it up, and that really hurt. We were in the red zone, and he coughed it up. But that's not the reason we lost. The reason that we lost was Tommy Reese's play calling.
Yeah, wow. Not a lot of offense there. 301 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay.
It wasn't as bad because I was with the Knuckleheads. I had a 2-hour live stream.
Nice.
That made my day a bit better. And I don't know if you know who Edward is, the trash talker.
I don't know. I know Edward Craven, the Clemson fan.
Yeah, he's a Florida State fan. He's an interesting guy.
Oh, Edward, the trash talker.
Yeah, he trash talked Notre Dame. I'm like, just give it to me. And then he trash talked Urban Meyer because one Scoop John wanted him to do that. That was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the Urban Meyer that used to beat their brains in at Florida State all the time? Is that the Urban Meyer we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm the one positive of this game.
Yeah.
Is that Tommy Rees didn't want Tobias Merriweather to get any playing time this year because he doesn't know all the plays and all the complex designs. But he did score a touchdown, and that was good. Michigan is the real deal. I will admit that. If I had to put money on it, I would say Ohio State to win just because they haven't won in Columbus since it was 2000, right?
Yes.
I wasn't born yet, so definitely have no faith in the Wolverines. I just can't see. I mean, it could happen, but I just think that Ohio State will pull it off. But yeah, Tommy Rees has to go. If Tommy Rees doesn't go, I will be very concerned about the future of Notre Dame football.
Do you watch Marcus Freeman's news conferences?
Yeah, I mean, I usually do.
What does he say about the offense?
Well, he's like, well, it looked like we were making progress, which was the weird thing. Like in the BYU game and the UNC game, the offense was much better. So I understood where he was coming from when he was hopeful. But I'm definitely going to have to watch the press conference that he did tonight. I know it was streamed on Notre Dame's YouTube channel. Well, no football talk. Well, I can have opinions about football.
Absolutely.
I may not know the background of everything. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like I have an interesting perspective to put on things.
You're always welcome here. You know that, Will.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to know that Will's got a YouTube channel. And we'll drop that in the chat. It's Will ND.
Will ND, yeah. So, well, I don't want to take everyone's time up complaining. So but please check out the College Football After Dark tomorrow. That'll be fun.
Yes.
We're gonna have it might be a bit somber because USC lost as well.
Somber?
Well,
hey,
not somber.
Pick it up. You guys need to pick it up regardless of who wins or loses.
No, I know we'll pick it up, but it'll be a different mood
here.
No, we'll pick it up. I'm just saying it'll be like a different sort of show because usually like this is going to be
my team loses. I still have to bring the energy.
No, I'll bring the energy, but it might just be the chat might be a little more aggressive at us because Bama lost with Jeff, and then USC lost Tim, Tony, and Rick, and then Notre Dame lost. So we might be taking a lot of shots, so that'll be fun.
Okay, that could be fun.
Yeah,
it's good for some people to lose once in a while.
Yeah,
know what it's like
to
lose.
Phenomenal day of college football, even so many great games. So that made my day a little bit better. But yeah,
we didn't have to watch Iowa play.
Oh my goodness, that's a gift. That's a gift from God. Well, our offense didn't look much better than theirs in the first half. I'll be honest and say that. So something needs to change with the offense. I think we need a new offensive coordinator. I have no idea who we're going to go after. So, yeah. I mean, I might even take Scott Frost, but I don't know how Scott Frost's recruiting will be. But
so you believe that if they stay with the same offensive production for the rest of the year, they don't get significantly better, they just continue to kind of muddle along, that he's gone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think he has to be. I mean, Marcus Freeman looks really frustrated on the sideline.
How long has he been the OC?
I think 2019, I think.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
I know Chip Long was before. No, it was 2020. My bad.
Okay, third year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's got to go. Maybe we could get Chip Long back. That would be good because he's kind of turned around Georgia Tech a bit. They've won a couple games.
Yes. Georgia Tech is in the midst of a division race.
If they win the Coastal.
And that's one of the reasons why I was so upset that when I say that, I'm of course kidding, but I was rooting for Duke to win. And I watched the final 4 minutes of that game, and they should have won that game.
Okay, I'll need to look at the highlights.
Oh my goodness. You didn't hear me off the top. I was lamenting.
Sorry, I was
losing.
streaming.
No, that's fine. But so basically Duke was up 35-31.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2.5 minutes left in the game. They've got the ball inside the 10-yard line to ice the game. They get stopped. They miss a chip shot field goal, 35-31. Drake May just starts slinging the ball down the field. The touchdown. But Duke gets them to a 4th and 5, but they convert it. And then there's only about 16 seconds left in the game, and Drake May hits a receiver who was they looked at the review on this play forever because you can't really see anything between his white shoe and the sideline, but they upheld it, the touchdown. And then even though there were only 12 seconds left in the game, Duke gets the kickoff, and their first pass, they throw a 40-yard pass down to the 45, and they only needed one more play to set up a field goal, but didn't get it done. I was really rooting for Duke.
Man, that and the Bama's losses are both those must be hard for those fans to overcome.
I want to see. Well, that's you're kind of going on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh yeah, but
Bama fans dealing with their laws versus Duke fans dealing with their laws.
Well, they're difficult ways to lose.
Yeah, I wanted to see. I do think that North Carolina would potentially be the best challenge to Clemson in the ACC championship game, but I kind of like the Georgia Tech Duke story. I wanted to see one of them break through and win the Coastal.
It would be great if you could have Sea Dog on to talk about Georgia Tech. That would be fun.
Who's Sea Dog?
He's a huge diehard Georgia Tech football fan. I don't know how he does it.
All right, we'll have him on.
Yeah, he just has a bad connection though. That's the one thing I'm worried about. That bad Wi-Fi connection.
We used to talk Georgia Tech football on a regular basis. We had Joey Weaver. He ran the SB Nation site for Georgia Tech. We used to have him on all the time.
Yeah. Trosper, Mike Elson does hurt, but Mike Elson was going to leave if we didn't make him DC. And he in the play calling against Oklahoma State because he was the defensive coordinator for that one game. And it just didn't go well in the second half. So that's why we let him go. But there wasn't really anything Notre Dame could do. And I think Al Washington I don't think he's doing a bad job at D-line, but we'll see. We'll see how he does. Do you think that the whole staff should have been wiped clean for Ohio State, or do you think there's some guys in that staff that was fired?
Oh, the defensive staff?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Larry Johnson's exceptional as a defensive line coach. So I thought
apparently he's really good at recruiting negatively against Notre Dame.
Okay, well, however he recruits well.
Yeah.
So they've got 4 or 5 stars along the defensive line. So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to Ohio State, and I know people are down on Penn State right now, but that could be a challenge. And
I think Drew Aller, if they develop him, I think he'll be a really good quarterback.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
appreciate you being here, Will. I got some calls lining up now.
Of course. Have a great night, Mark, and enjoy this Oregon State, Washington State game. Could get interesting.
Look for that. I think it's on the Pac-12 network.
Yeah.
To get that on here.
Watch the end of that game.
All right, Will. There will be better days for you.
Yeah, there will be better days.
All right. Have a good one.
See you, Mark.
All right. We'll keep it rolling here. We've got, let me actually see who this would be. I believe this is Sean. Yes, we got Sean on the line. Sean, how are you?
Great. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you being here.
Oh,
what
a day, huh?
Absolutely. Great day.
Seems like every year there's kind of a slate of games that outshines the rest of the year. And I think we might look back at the end of the year, this might have been the most eventful day of the regular season when it's all said and done. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though neither of my teams, either Ohio State or Cincinnati, were in action today, and I still was watching with bated breath the entire day.
Well, I think we're going to have quite a few days like today. You know, there are still extremely important games left that are going to decide divisions. Really, the one team that's got a stranglehold right now that is in the best position is Clemson. They've beaten all the best teams on their schedule in division play. They really can't lose the division at this point. They've almost secured the ACC championship game, but everything else is still just wide open.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And a whole lot's going to come down to just one game. And I mean, we almost see the Georgia-Tennessee game. Is it fair, too early to call that a de facto SEC East, SEC semifinal?
Well, sure, technically it is, but I'm right there with you, and I think most people are, that maybe Kentucky would be the one team that would have a chance at beating either one of those teams, but it's a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
And other than that, that's about it. I guess that maybe Georgia could go on the road and lose at Mississippi State. Tennessee doesn't have anybody else in the Western Division. They've already played LSU and Alabama. And so, yeah, Georgia, Tennessee, that's most likely going to decide everything.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Watching the Michigan game, I was anticipating that to be, one of the more competitive games of the day. I didn't necessarily know what to think of Penn State coming into the day. I knew they had a couple struggles that were kind of concerning. Kind of a difficult time putting away Central, who's not good at all.
Yeah.
Even for a MAC program. And obviously 17-7 against Northwestern. You're not going to blow anyone away with that. But until today, I hadn't seen Michigan even come close to really demonstrating that they were really an elite team this year. Those first 3 games, they were significantly better than, very mediocre competition. And those games, each one of them was, competitive well into the fourth quarter. And I was thinking coming in, I can't imagine Ohio State having we'll see them play Iowa next week. I think that's going to be a slaughter fest. I think they're going to murder Maryland and Indiana too. I don't anticipate those being competitive games. So I was thinking before, Michigan's just not even close to Ohio State's level. I don't know after today. I mean, that was impressive. They showed out today. And I mean, however good Penn State is, I mean, we know they're a real opponent, and the game wasn't even as close as the score.
No.
It was, I mean, that's a misleading. That was a thorough beatdown. I'm just wondering, what do you think the real Michigan is? Do you think it's closer to the team we saw today or the team we saw against Maryland, Iowa, and Indiana?
I think it's closer to the team we saw today, because I think we see this when teams play in big games during the season. We see it when they play in conference championship games. We see that it in the playoff. We see teams rise to the occasion. And when I say rise to the occasion, in not just in a positive way, in a negative way, basically show themselves to be who they are when they play the best teams on their schedule, for better or worse. So Michigan, yeah, Maryland had a shot. Iowa had a shot, Maryland more so, but they were never seriously threatened. They had control of those games. So I think they really were laser focused and brought it today. And I think that's a strong indication of who they are.
Okay. I mean, that's a fair assessment, and I tend to agree with you. Do you see, like, right now, does it feel like a foregone conclusion? We're getting an 11-0 and 11-0 matchup. Is there, I mean,
both of these teams are way better than everybody else they're playing. That doesn't mean that Penn State could not give Ohio State a really good game in Happy Valley, because they could. We see it all the time where teams will rise up and play much better than, Penn State's a top 15 to 20 team in the country. That performance today doesn't really change my mind much about Penn State. They're one of the 15 or 20 best teams in the country. But there's a gap there between being one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the country and being 15th or 20th. And I also believe that if they played again and again and again, we wouldn't see that kind of result over and over and over. But that's all we've got to go on. But yeah, they're both so much better than everybody on their schedule. But all you have to do is look at college football every year and look at struggles against lesser teams. It could happen, sure.
Okay, and James Franklin, he's in kind of one of the more interesting situations, I think, in college football. I mean, I know people who were, for some, it seems like a large amount of the public has been really down on him for a long time. I think it's been exaggerated. I think I've always thought he was a really good coach. I thought when he came in, the success he had at Vanderbilt was very impressive, and what he was doing early on at Penn State was really impressive. Even then, I had some friends that just weren't believers in him at all. Thought he was an albatross to the program.
Well, his first 2 years were pretty lousy, and then he got it going.
Okay, well, and then that was when they were still
2 years.
They were still kind of. They were reeling at that point from they were playing with like half a roster.
Sure.
Had no depth whatsoever.
Point, but Bill O'Brien did more with them than James Franklin did. So Bill O'Brien was really in the middle of it, and he went 8-4 and 7-5.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think Franklin might have dealt with it a little bit more, because that was like after a couple years of severe recruiting restrictions, severe sanctions that really, I think, crippled their depth more for Franklin than they really did for O'Brien. O'Brien had a full roster when he came in. I mean, he had a few transfers, but I think the depth was worse with Franklin there. because you had a few years where you could only recruit like 10, 12 guys.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, what Franklin did, for like 4 years there at Penn State, he got them on the precipice of,
Sure.
kind of an elite program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been regression ever since. And like everyone that was, bearish on him a few years ago, they kind of seem vindicated. What do you think his job security is like at that program now? Because this is a place where they should expect to compete for championships.
Yeah, and they're paying him like it.
Yeah, what do you think his status is?
They're generally recruiting like it, and they're paying him like it. They're just not producing on the field like it. And like you say, he had 4 consecutive years where they were on the precipice, and he made his famous quote after one of his 1-point losses against Ohio State that they had a great program, which I thought was an overstatement. But anyway, they had a great program, but he said, the team we play today has an elite program, and we need to get to elite. Well, if I'm not mistaken, that was either in 2017 or 18, he made that comment. And so here we are 4 to 5 years later, and they've regressed. So I would have told you, because it was pretty logical thought process, that because of the buyout, that would prohibit them from getting rid of James Franklin unless they were just awful. But with buyouts being paid all over the place, Penn State's serious about football, obviously, and that's why they're paying a coach $90 million. So maybe next year's his year to either get it done or leave.
Okay. All right. One last question. Is TCU for real?
What does for real mean?
I mean, can they actually could they possibly make a playoff and have a competitive game again in a playoff game?
No. They can get to the playoff, yeah, but to play competitively in the playoff, as we've seen every year, there's a big difference. Okay. So they can win the Big 12, sure.
All right, actually, I just want to say kind of one last scenario here. Sure. Michigan and Ohio State, they're 11. If they're 11-0, and let's just say that game is somewhat respectable. Ohio State wins by like 10 points.
Sure.
Do you see a scenario? They're both in the playoffs.
Sure.
Sorry, I have a little bit of noise that just emerged.
That's all right. We're hearing some political news going on, I think, there. But
sorry about that.
There's a scenario. Absolutely. Now they need some help, because we know what the likelihood of a non-champion getting into the playoff is. It's low. There's been 32 teams make the playoff, and we've had 2 non-champions make it, right? Is it 2, 3? Yes, Notre Dame would be the other one.
The SEC said Ohio State made it as a non-champion. And I know Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, we've got more than that. We got about 4. Got Ohio State in 16, Bama in 17,
Georgia last year,
Notre Dame in 20, and Georgia in 20. So we got 4. So we got 4 out of 32. So anyway, it's not likely, but sure, it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the mediocrity in the other conferences sort of lends, the Pac-12, Big 12, and the ACC. Although the ACC is better this year, I mean, I could imagine the committee just putting Michigan in over a 1-loss champion.
Well, for anybody who wants that, anybody who's rooting for that let's say is a Big Ten supporter that wants both teams in, we got 2 positive results tonight. We got USC lost and Oklahoma State lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, but Oklahoma State did lose to another undefeated.
Yeah, well, whichever way that was going to break, I consider kind of going into the game that Oklahoma State was probably the better threat to run the table.
Yeah, I kind of agree. All right, thanks, Mark. You have a great night.
Yeah, appreciate the call.
Take it.
Here we go. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We've got, we don't know who we've got. Who's on the line?
Oh, hey, Mark. You can just call me Mooley.
Mooley.
Yeah, Mooley. I got like a million questions, so I'm just trying to
questions.
I'm
Alrighty.
going to keep it
Sounds
down
good.
to 3. Damn, where do I start? Because because actually just now you were talking about TCU like being like a contender. Because I'm looking at their schedule.
Mhm.
I think they played all their toughest teams, unless Texas. I mean, Texas did struggle today against Iowa State, but like Kansas State, I feel like they're not one of the better teams in the Big 12. They're still solid, still a solid team, but like, and there's West Virginia, Texas Tech, Baylor, Iowa State. I feel like Kansas is the biggest. Texas is the biggest threat left for TCU. So I'm saying like, hey, could this team really have a legitimate shot to make it? I know you just said like they could, but they're not like a real contender or not. But I don't know.
Well, just to clarify what I meant by that is that they have a definite shot to win the Big 12 championship and go to the playoff, in a similar way that we saw Oklahoma State lose the Big 12 championship game by, a fraction of a centimeter at the
Right.
goal line last year. Otherwise, Oklahoma State would have been in the playoff, most likely. So a similar situation here. If TCU can go undefeated as a conference champion, they've got a probably 90% chance of making the playoff. If they are a one-loss conference champion, then again, it's going to come down to other scenarios. So can they do that? Well, I don't have their schedule in front of me, but you're saying that their toughest games are behind them? So they haven't
Yes.
played. So they got rid of Oklahoma State today. They still have to play Baylor and Texas.
Right.
They've knocked off Kansas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. But Texas is probably the most talented team in the conference.
Right. They didn't have the best showing today.
No.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we can just speculate all day. So I guess we can just leave it at that. Because I also wanted to mention you were also talking about Clemson's schedule being pretty open. Next week they play Syracuse. And
Sure.
I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone's picking Clemson, but like Syracuse has been taking care of business. And they've beaten some solid teams. They've beaten Purdue earlier this year. They beat NC State, though. I don't know how it seems. I'm not sure how good NC State is anymore to say, but like, I mean, hey, they're undefeated. And once they beat Clemson, they're going to play whatever team is in the Coastal, which is, I'm pretty sure they're going to beat that team in the Coastal in the championship.
Yeah, the point that I was making is that Clemson has beaten the 3 best teams in their division, in my opinion. Now,
Okay.
Syracuse, to their credit, like you said, they have capitalized on their schedule, which has not been daunting. On paper, you could either say Purdue or NC State is the best team that they've played. They were extremely fortunate to beat Purdue.
Right, that's true.
But they won the game. I don't necessarily agree with the officials' approach to calling the game in the closing minute, but regardless, Syracuse won the game. And on paper, the team they played today would have been the best team, but they were without their starting quarterback, Devin Leary. So Syracuse won that game. They had control of the game. They won by 15 points. It was in doubt, but they had control of that game most of the way. I had it on most of the game. So, yeah, I don't want to discount Syracuse in any way, but I do believe that Wake Forest and NC State and with Devin Leary and Florida State are probably from a talent standpoint, I don't think you can question that they're a cut above. But yeah, Syracuse continues to prove themselves week after week. But now you're looking at who else do they have to play. Regardless, it comes down to Clemson and Syracuse for the division championship. So if Syracuse can somehow pull off an upset in Death Valley, then they get a 2-game cushion to get to the conference championship game.
Right. I'll add to what you said about, Devin Leary is out, but also, like, I think Chambers is still like for what it is, like, still good enough a quarterback to where it's not like a significant drop off, because if you watch some of these games too with NC State, it's like Leary is not throwing like he was last season.
True.
Anyways, and I think against like the Texas Tech game, Leary had like under like 130 or 150 yards total, and it was more of in the air. So yeah, we can say that, but like we can say they were out Devin Leary, but I don't know how much of a difference that makes. Maybe like mentality standpoint, and without having a leader, it affects the team psychologically, but from a talent perspective, like, I don't know. I'm also a lot of the hyped up ACC quarterbacks this year have disappointed, like Brendan Armstrong or Tyler Van Dyke, or
sure.
I mean, I guess Sam Hartman too has not every game. The games I've watched, at least, at Wake Forest, he wasn't like slinging it every time, but yeah.
Well, he lit up Clemson.
You did let it kill Clemson.
No, but you make a good point about Devin Leary. So we've seen Tyler Van Dyke have an awful stretch of games. Now he's come back the last 2 weeks and played really well. And I kind of I was just phrasing it in a way that we know that Devin Leary at his best can play at an extremely high level, threw 35 touchdowns and only 5 picks, and was the offensive player of the year coming into this season. Whereas Jack Chambers, I don't know much about him. I had the game on today. It wasn't the game that I was focused on, but it just seemed like he's a running quarterback. He's a guy that they are kind of afraid of cutting loose. And so you see a lot of quarterback draws. You see a lot of plays that limit his decision-making. And so they seem to be kind of hamstrung versus what Devin Leary has done in the past.
That is true. I was thinking for like, in a way that he's better just rushing, like, and just picking up yards, Chambers. But like, no, I understand. I'm not the NC State like guru or anything. I just watch them on like with 3 other screens. I guess I'll ask is, do you have any teams that are rising in the past couple of weeks? Because LSU had a pretty impressive win. Jaden Daniels specifically lit up Florida. Nebraska has been on a roll. Is there any teams that have been sticking out to you that have been rising up lately?
Well, I would be less impressed with the Nebraska roll per se, because they beat Indiana and Rutgers.
True.
But they did play well tonight. And when I say they played well, I didn't watch the game. I didn't see one play of the game. But I hopefully will get a chance to go back and watch it. But they obviously played a good opponent on the road and stayed close.
I didn't watch too much of the game, but I turned it on in the second half, kind of on the side. There was like one play where like it seemed like the quarterback is throwing better, but then there were also just like a few plays where it was just like it felt like Purdue had blown the coverage. Again, I only watched some play, mainly in the second half, didn't even turn it on until then. But it did feel like there were some miscues in the Purdue defense too.
Yeah, so the team that comes to mind when you ask me about what teams are trending up would be Illinois.
For sure. And also I also did want to ask you about Minnesota, because Tanner Morgan, he went like 4 of 12 or something. And I think like of the passes he was able to complete, like two or three of them were genuinely like good throws. it's just like the rest was just completely taken. Like it seemed like just this Illinois defense just ate up Minnesota. I'm still not sure on how good of a team Minnesota is. Like maybe they're an average team, maybe they're slightly above average. I guess I want to see what your thoughts are. As for Illinois, I think they're legit. They're a really good team, but Minnesota, I was just wondering, what do you think about that win for that team?
Well, my thought about Minnesota coming into the season was I was very close to picking them to win the division because Kirk Shiraka was coming back as offensive coordinator, and Tanner Morgan had his best year by far when he was there in 2019, hoping that Mo Ibrahim was healthy and ready to come back, which he has been for the most part. So I had high hopes that their offense would bounce back because it was pretty limited last year. It was effective on the ground, but they had one of the worst passing offenses in college football last year. And then the defense brought back, I believe, 7 starters, but lost, even though that was a pretty healthy number in regards to production and starters, they lost some stars, some real impact guys. And also their offensive line last year was extremely good, and they lost everyone except for their all Big Ten center. And so and with playing the lesser teams for the most part in the Eastern Division outside of Penn State, that I thought they had a real shot to win the West. But what we've seen this year is that, their passing game has not been good at all. And but other than that, they've played Minnesota football. Now, they really were hurt by losing Ibrahim against Purdue because the other backs could not produce anything. But I see that he had a big game today. I had the game on, but I didn't really watch it against Illinois. So I can't really evaluate how they played today, but I just saw that obviously they got behind and Illinois seemed to control the game.
Right. Both teams were able to rush the ball effectively from what I remember. The point where it's like, when I was watching, it's like, how good are these like rush defenses? Because there were like some big holes and like even though Tanner Morgan couldn't get anything in the air, there were, I guess maybe that was just like the scheme that Bielema drew up. Just let them run the ball, just take away the passing game. But it did seem like Illinois was allowing them to run the ball a lot, pretty effectively, but they still got the win.
Yeah, Ibrahim had 127 yards on 15 carries, but Illinois' got the number 1 ranked defense in the country statistically, and I don't expect that to go down after giving up only 180 yards of total offense in this game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for talking about these teams, Mark.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. See you.
So you can see on the banner there, please join us on Discord. You go to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV on Patreon, patreon.com. Get to talk to the knuckleheads all the time in the live chat. I will duck in there from time to time. And also you get my picks, which were 10-5 against the spread today, 15-7 last week. So we're on an upward trajectory, as I predicted. Cross our fingers for next week, but as I predicted, because we're usually at 60% against the spread, and I had been languishing around 50% up until these last 2 weekends. So we got it going now. All right, next up here at the Voice of College Football, and I've been failing to ask people who they root for because I want to get a track on our callers and the favorite teams of the callers. So who do we have on the line here?
We have Aiden here.
Aiden's here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. How you
Hold
been?
on.
Nothing much. Just got done watching the Utah USC game.
Yeah.
Whoa. What an unbelievable game that was.
Absolutely.
And I also got to see that thorough beat down that Michigan put on Penn State.
Yep.
which
I saw that as well.
we really dominated the entire game. How Penn State was only down 2 at half, I do not know.
Well, they had a 65-yard run from Sean Clifford, and they had a pick six, and they held Michigan to field goals in the red zone.
Yeah, and that's the only time when their defense decided to play, apparently. But yeah, I do think that Michigan and Ohio State, as long as Michigan can keep the Ohio State game somewhat respectable, both of them will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, certainly could be.
Because I think the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are just too deep to where they're just going to kill each other.
Yeah, too deep, too marginal.
Yeah, so maybe the Big Ten gets 2 teams in this year.
Could be. That could happen.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, Illinois is not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination.
Illinois can't go to the playoff?
No, I'm saying for Michigan, obviously, Illinois isn't a cakewalk of a game by.
Oh, since Michigan has to play Illinois. Yeah. Why don't we start talking about Illinois to go to the playoff?
Dude, I'm not talking about Illinois to go to the playoff.
No, I'm saying, why don't we talk about that? Why don't we start that talk? They've only lost 1 game. Illinois get the same record Alabama has. I'm thinking at this point, shoot, Illinois beaten who? Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Alabama beat Texas. Okay, I was going to match those wins up. Yeah, Alabama still has them, but Illinois. What if Illinois wins the rest of their games and wins the Big Ten championship game? They'll be 12-1.
Maybe. And I also think that the ACC in the current state is why we just need to remove divisions within the conferences completely.
Well, that's what they're doing next year.
Yeah, I know, but you're probably gonna have Clemson playing a 7-5 team in their conference championship.
Well, I think North Carolina has a chance to do a bit better than that. North Carolina right now is 6-1. And they're 3-0 in the conference. So let's say North Carolina goes 6-2 in the ACC. They're going to be 9-3. Or they're going to be 8-4. But that's 3 other losses. I don't necessarily see that happening. But anyway, the way things stand right now, I can see North Carolina being a 9-3 team that plays in the ACC championship game.
And I think that
we do better than that, actually.
I think that would kind of be interesting with Drake May and those receivers and those couple of running backs North Carolina has.
Yeah, could be interesting. Or they could lose by 3 touchdowns.
or that too. And I think Blake Corum needs to be in serious talks for the Heisman conversation at this point.
Yes, he does. Blake Corum, C.J. Stroud, Hendon Hooker, Chase Brown. How about Chase Brown?
He's a pretty good one too. You know, Brett Bielema's certainly doing his shit down there. So,
All right, man.
uh,
Anything else for us?
I mean, that's all I got.
Okay. Appreciate you calling, man. Always good to hear from you. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night, brother.
All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. A few friendly reminders, of course, that we got Discord for you. What that means is it's a chat where you talk college football 24/7, 365, 24/7, 365. So what happens is you go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV on Patreon, patreon.com, search Mark Rogers TV, and I get you the Discord link, and you talk college football just like you do on here all the time. You can get on there all the time, 24/7, 365. There's about 95 of us on there, and we are growing by the day. So please bring your college football knowledge and insight, and it's fun. And you also get my picks, which again, 25-12 against the spread the last 2 weekends. And grab the Amazon link in the description section of all the videos. All the videos, Amazon, it's right near the top in caps. Grab the Amazon link, put it somewhere where you will remember it, and so you can help us build the channel. Ben, what's going on tonight?
Hey, okay, so let's talk about this possibility of Illinois getting to the playoffs.
Yes.
So
I would love that.
would you?
This is who I'm rooting for right now. I would love, this is the playoff I would love. Maybe I'll take my team out of it. We'll go.
Well, you're
how
going to have
about-
to for Illinois to get there.
What's that?
You're going to have to for Illinois to get there because they're either going to have to go through Michigan twice or Ohio State once.
Ohio State's undefeated and they lose by 1 point to Illinois, they can't make the playoff.
Okay. I got you. I got
Anyway,
where you're going.
let's say we go Tennessee, Syracuse, Illinois, and TCU in the playoff.
Oh wow, that would be a playoff to remember.
That would be phenomenal.
I was hoping for USC to make it. I was like, I was hoping for I was pulling for Tennessee. I was pulling for USC, and it just people that haven't been there, and that's who I want Michigan there to go and make it get in the championship game, of course, but they haven't been there that much. I mean, they were there last year, but I'm still pulling for them anyways. But no, yeah, I know. I totally see what you're saying, and kind of go. I was going a little bit more likely scenarios, maybe Tennessee.
Sure.
I'll even take Georgia there over Alabama. I'm tired of seeing Alabama play in the playoffs, and I'm tired of seeing Clemson, and I'm tired of seeing Ohio State. So I think a lot of people. And this year it's exciting because I don't know, maybe it kind of happens every year, but we all are excited about maybe being other teams in the playoffs, and it just never pans out. Maybe you have one team that last year was Cincinnati and Michigan though, so that was kind of exciting.
So what scenarios do you want to go over?
Oh, I was just thinking of how Illinois. Well, you got to be thinking about Illinois making it to the playoffs, and I'm like, they're gonna have to go either through Michigan twice, or go through Michigan and Ohio, and that'll be tough. It's fun to think about, but
sure, Illinois is not going to the playoff, but I'm just saying, as it stands, they have a chance to go to the playoff. They are in a position to go to the playoff. Are they going to go to the playoff? No.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Well, not for sure, but it's
just like Syracuse. Is Syracuse going to go to the playoff?
I think Syracuse has a better shot than
they do
in Illinois because Syracuse has to go through Clemson, and they could be a championship.
If they could somehow, if we could just get Syracuse past Clemson, then yes, they can beat everyone else on their schedule. They could win an ACC championship game against Duke or North Carolina or whomever. They could beat any of those teams. I'm not saying that they would for sure, but they certainly could. Yeah.
I mean, I would think that is a more likely scenario than Illinois getting through.
Oh, it is by far.
Because I honestly, if I look at, I think Clemson, out of the teams that are in the top 5, I think Clemson is the least proven. I think they could easily falter under duress. They haven't done anything. They haven't been dominant. They've been kind of squeaking by, and not like Michigan. You could say the same thing about Michigan, but Michigan has played with control, and Clemson has. When I watched Clemson a few times, I didn't think they were going to win.
When did you not think Clemson was going to win?
Oh, who was it?
The Wake Forest game was.
Yeah, that's the one when we were playing Wake Forest, and I think was it North Carolina? There in the. I think I watched maybe the first half of that game or something like that. NC State, yeah. I think the first half I was like, no, I'm not sure Clemson's going to pull this one off. They didn't look. I mean, they just didn't look dominant for the hype I think they're getting. I don't know, maybe. I don't watch the ACC that much. It just I can only go from a couple games and then just kind of what I see on Sports Talk or the highlights. So I guess I probably shouldn't comment too much on that because I don't come from any just my opinion. I don't have anything to back it by. Even when I watched a little bit that I watched them play today, I didn't think they were a dominating team.
No, they did not have the kind of performance that Michigan had, for sure.
No, or Ohio State had every game other than like the Notre Dame game. Or even, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, they've played, Alabama, they had a close one with, Texas, I guess. But when you watch Alabama play at no point do you think they have lost a game. Like when I watched tonight, the whole time I'm thinking, man, Tennessee better keep putting points on the board every time because I didn't think that Alabama was going to stop scoring.
Yeah. So you think we should be ranking teams and selecting teams based on how we feel that they're not going to lose?
No.
Okay.
No. Hey, okay. So you watched the what game did you like the most today that you watched?
Alabama, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. What did you think about that? That play that they called the pass interference, when the receiver pulled the defender on top of him, like towards the end of the game.
Are we talking about the play that they didn't call pass interference?
They called pass interference on. They called pass interference on Tennessee, and the receiver kind of grabbed the defender's shoulder pads and like pulled a guy on top of him. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It was in the end zone. It was towards. I don't remember exactly. It was in the fourth. I'm pretty sure it was the.
So this is before Alabama scored the touchdown to take the lead.
I think it was that. I think it was that drive they got the pass interference. Wasn't it that drive, or was the drive before? No, I think it was that drive that they got that pass interference call. I thought it was a really good play by the receiver because I don't think he was going to had much of a shot at the ball because it was thrown into like double coverage, and he pulled the guy on top of him and then called the penalty. I thought Tennessee fans were gonna riot.
Okay, for some reason I missed that play. So Alabama obviously scored, but an Alabama receiver committed pass interference and they called it on Tennessee.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it.
Okay.
They kind of I'll tell you what, Mark, I'm gonna let you go. And I'll post it. I'll look at find out where it was, and I'll post it in the chat for you if you wanna
Cool.
relook at that play, man.
Yeah, I'll give that a look.
All right. You catch you later, Mark. You have a good night, man.
Thanks for calling, Ben. We appreciate it. All right, folks. Thanks for being here on a Saturday night. We take your calls each Saturday night as a wrap-up show after all the primetime games. So we appreciate you being here. The 3 times Unforgiven. Okay, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. That's very nice of you. If Sparty somehow beats Michigan, and let's stop right there. So this seems ridiculous. This seems ridiculous, and most likely it is. However, let's all understand we can go season to season to season to season and find all sorts of results where teams were not supposed to lose, where unranked teams beat top teams in the country. So it happens. I know it's unlikely, yes. But Michigan State did show us a little life today. What would that mean for Jim? And what would that mean for the Michigan State program? At this point, we're watching the reciting unfold. I don't know what that means. Hoping for a solid recruiting class. Go green. Okay. So for Jim Harbaugh, what does that mean if they lose to Michigan State? Well, his fate, he's fine. He's leading one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country right now. So he's fine. You know, the Michigan faithful are not going to be happy if they lose to Michigan State, lose to Ohio State, and don't get back to the Big Ten championship game in the playoff, but he's not going to lose his job if they're 10-2. So I don't quite follow your question there. What would that mean for him? That would mean that he lost a game that he's not supposed to lose, and that he's still going to be playing for the Big Ten championship against Ohio State and against whomever. Now, that's more significant for the Michigan State program. Mel Tucker's recruiting great. His recruiting situation right now is really strong. So despite their struggles on the field, which have been immense, now Michigan State has been awful. I put them at 13th in my power rankings. They were so bad. They will obviously climb a little bit. But the recruiting that would be a tremendous recruiting push for Michigan State. That's what that's all about, beating Michigan. Unless I'm missing something else there. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh losing to Michigan State's not good. This is a playoff capable team losing to a horrible team. But even if that happens, Michigan could still win the rest of the games, win the Big Ten championship, go to the playoff. It's more about Michigan State and recruiting, and even in the midst of having a bad season, being able to beat its rival. And that would be a big coup for recruiting, especially for a team in a program that is recruiting well. That's the one thing Mel Tucker's got going for him right now. All right, we got Treestar on the line. What's going on tonight?
Hey, so I just wanted to ask you that. Oh, first things first, I gotta say go blue. I wanted to ask you, like, from an Ohio State fan perspective, how do you feel like do you think Ohio State's gonna beat Michigan down? Like, your opinion as an Ohio State fan, are you like 100% confident that Ohio State's, winning this year? Or how do you feel about that game?
Absolutely not. Do I feel 100% confident? No, not even close.
Okay.
No, we watched the Michigan team today. That was a complete performance. It was a complete beatdown, domination of. Now, of course, people are going to say Penn State wasn't that good and they were overrated and all this other business. Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe slightly. But is Penn State one of the 20 best teams in the country? Yeah, they are. So Michigan did something today that we haven't seen Ohio State do this year. Now, Ohio State dominating teams, and they're posting more impressive wins because they just have
Ohio State also hasn't had the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, they haven't had the opportunity to, although they did against Notre Dame. And
they did. That's true.
That game until the fourth quarter. So yeah, that's a concerning performance for an Ohio State fan. It should be.
Do you feel like Michigan can do what they were able to do, like where they didn't really like? I mean, JJ played fine, but he didn't do much. Where they basically just gave the ball to Edwards and Corum. Do you think they'll that's a possible way to win against Ohio State? Or do you think JJ's definitely going to have to perform much better?
So it obviously was a way to beat them last year. So you either figure that Michigan has a similar, if anything, Michigan probably has a better offensive line with the Virginia transfer Oluwatimi at center than they did last year.
Yeah, that could be.
He's a tremendous player. Hassan Haskins certainly brought a very important component to the Michigan offense, but Blake Corum, to me, has gone from being a role player, a very dynamic role player, to being a workhorse. So he has almost matched Hassan Haskins as a workhorse, but that also is a dynamic player that can hit a home run at any time. So their rushing attack, with Donovan Edwards now being added to the mix, their rushing attack has even eclipsed what it was last year, in my opinion. They're even better running the football, and obviously they pushed Ohio State all over the field. Now, Ohio State defensively has shown that they've toughened up.
Improved. Sure.
They've improved overall, but just from a physical standpoint, they've toughened up, in addition to just getting their assignments down much better than they did last year. They are a tougher-minded, tougher, probably physical, more physically capable team. Their strength and conditioning was a big focus during the offseason, but they faced a Notre Dame team that's known for having a good offensive line and capable backs. Outside of that, Wisconsin should have been that team. Braylon Allen's really good, but they did face a couple teams that were not vintage Notre Dame or Wisconsin rushing attacks, but still solid, and they were able to contain them. Other than that, there's really nobody else that comes to mind that they've played that would have tested them in a way that Michigan's going to test them.
Do you think would you say that both teams have improved from last year? Like both teams are overall better teams from last year? Yeah. So do you think, I know a lot of people have been saying, I mean, it's been annoying me so much, but they've been saying Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, top three, and then there's everybody else. Would you say that Michigan has gone into that top tier class, or would you say they're still tier two?
So what I said during the entire offseason was that I believed that Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State were the three best teams. And if I was certain about two teams, it would be Alabama and Georgia. That Ohio State needed to, I believed that they had the roster talent to match the other two, but I needed to see them bring the defense and upgrade the defense. And so once that was proven to me, for a few weeks, several weeks there, I was saying these are the three best teams in the country. And even for most of that time, I think Ohio State's actually played better than the other two, although the other two have been tested against better teams. And Michigan didn't really move the needle for me until today.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, different topic. Would you say what is more likely in your opinion? Tennessee beats Georgia and then Alabama again and goes 13-0, or Syracuse eliminates Clemson from the playoffs? Not saying Syracuse makes the playoffs. Say Syracuse beats Clemson, loses another game, but gets in the ACC championship 11-1, and the ACC just completely gets eliminated. but Syracuse eliminates Clemson. Is basically what's more likely: Tennessee to go 13-0, or Syracuse to eliminate Clemson and basically the entire conference.
Syracuse to win next week.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
The reason I say that is because Syracuse, I love this story with Syracuse. Now, I'm not basing my opinion just because I'm rooting for the underdog to do something, but I'm not going to put Purdue or NC State in Clemson's class. But Purdue's a pretty good football team. And
I would agree.
And Syracuse, Purdue's in the Penn State range. NC State didn't have its quarterback today, but these are capable football teams. And I thought NC State up until a couple weeks ago was the second best team in the conference. And Syracuse beat both of them. Needed some help, but beat both of them. And so with Clemson, we've seen Clemson should have lost a game against Wake Forest. Even tonight, I watched most of that game, and they looked like the better team. This went from a 14-all game to Clemson then scoring the next 17 points or 20 points, taking a commanding lead. But then, Florida State had a chance. So Clemson was less than dominant. In facing the three best teams on its schedule the last 3 weeks, Clemson has basically had a coin flip game against Wake Forest, played even with NC State, and then dominated the second half, took control of the game in the second half after playing pretty much an even first half. And then Florida State, they had control of the game, but they didn't dominate the game.
Yeah.
So for as ridiculous as it sounds, I would be surprised if Syracuse won that game, but I don't think Clemson's unbeatable. Syracuse is they're continuing just to prove that they can somehow get the job done. I think that they're going to give Clemson a decent game. So I think that's much more likely because I think Clemson's a more flawed team than Tennessee beating Georgia. I don't know where the game's being played.
It's in Athens.
Okay, so Tennessee's got to go to Georgia and win, so that's tougher. And then they've got to beat Alabama again. They got to win a second. They got to win a rematch against Bama. I don't know that Nick Saban had anybody beat him. Well, he hasn't had anybody beat him twice in a season. So even though Tennessee's a better team than Syracuse, that's a daunting challenge.
Yeah, I mean, they would really earn their spot, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Today was Illinois winning against Minnesota. That got me pretty excited because obviously I don't expect Ohio State to lose to Penn State at all. But if that were to happen, Illinois winning for Michigan is a pretty good result. So I was pretty happy with that result. Also, Michigan State beating Wisconsin was also pretty favorable for a three-way tiebreaker scenario because that's obviously a cross-divisional opponent for Ohio State. So Ohio State's gonna, have to win both games. I would hope Michigan would make the Big Ten championship by being undefeated. But if for some reason that scenario did present itself, I'm happy that it does favor Michigan at this point.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that was it. That was all I was calling in for.
Well, I appreciate you calling, and have a great rest of your weekend, and call back anytime.
Yep.
All right, folks. Appreciate everybody being here. A few things, of course. Hit the Amazon link. It's in the description section of the videos. Mr. Jimmy, appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. And I believe Jimmy's excited about the Clemson Tigers, I would guess, not necessarily the LSU Tigers. So we've got a couple Tigers that won today. And let's go to the scores. Let's go to the scores. And I will leave a link here again. in the live chat. But let's go to the scoreboard, see what we got. So first and foremost, my goodness, in the least talked about game of the day, the most ignored game of the day, Georgia beat Vandy 55-0. Georgia beat Vandy last year 62-0. So they've got a, let's do the math, 117-0 advantage over Vandy the last 2 years. There, of course, is the Bama score against Tennessee. Vols win at 52-49. We've been talking about this game all week, anticipating could it be a good game. It was a great game. It was a phenomenal game. Clemson again, probably more decisive than it shows, 34-28, but still Florida State hung around. Jordan Travis was amazing in this game. Michigan, one of the more impressive showings of the day, of course. I still think Penn State's a quality team, not a great team, quality team. Michigan wins. Phenomenal game down here. I did not see how this transpired at the end. I watched most of the first 3 quarters, and Utah beats a USC 43-42. That severely hurts the Pac-12 chances of getting to the playoffs. Join our USC crew. They should be live right this second. If you go to the USC channel, if you want to talk USC football and hear from those guys, be my guest. You will not be offending me if you ditch me and go over to the USC channel and check out, yes, USC post-game with Tim, Tony, and Rick on the USC channel. 43-42, Utah wins. Another enormous game there. TCU comes back from 17 down. They beat Oklahoma State 43-40. Max Duggan with a big day. 2 touchdown passes, 286 through the air. And this Johnston kid for TCU, 8 for 180 receiving. And last week against, Oklahoma? No, Kansas. He had over 200 yards receiving. So we need to lock in on Quentin Johnston and know that name. Ole Miss over Auburn, 48-34. There's the aforementioned orange. We're talking Syracuse football, mid-October. 6-0. Go to Clemson next week. They beat NC State 24-9. Kentucky with a big win over Mississippi State. So Kentucky, after losing 2 consecutive games, beats a good team in Mississippi State. For those that were thinking the far-fetched notion that Mississippi State could challenge Bama, they still only have one. No. Mississippi State lost to LSU. So think about this, and we'll get to the LSU score in a minute. LSU only has 1 conference loss. So when they play Bama, they will have their shot to take over first place in the Western Division. OU, you got to credit Brent Venables for as hard as we've been on Brent Venables, and he has earned our criticism the last 3 weeks. Just think about how easily that could come off the rails, and maybe did come off the rails. So for them to beat a good Kansas team, they still haven't fixed the defense. They got torn to shreds on defense, but Dylan Gabriel shows up. 403 through the air, 2 touchdowns. Eric Gray, 176 yards on the ground, and Oklahoma wins 52-42. So maybe they are not the worst team in the Big 12. Texas, I tell you, this was really close. Iowa State had the lead. Iowa State had the lead in the 4th quarter. Iowa State had the ball down 24-21. Xavier Hutchinson, one of the best pass catchers in Iowa State history, all Big 12 performer, dropped a sure touchdown pass. For some reason, he decided to leave his feet and jump. And the next play, Deckers fumbled, and Iowa State loses 24-21. So Texas survives a big scare there. And then you got Minnesota, Illinois, huge win for Brett Bielema and crew, 26-14. James Madison as a top 25 team. Well, they will not be in the top 25. That actually makes sense. They will not be in the AP top 25, I would think, after losing to Georgia Southern. So again, we see where a group of 5 team that's given some love because they're undefeated really aren't that good. Elsewhere, we still have football going on at Fresno State with the Bulldogs having a rough year for them. usually one of the better teams in the Mountain West, leading San Jose State, who's at first place in the Mountain West, 14-10. There you see the Hawaii score over Nevada, 21-13. There's the Georgia score and the other teams in the top 25 that we already ran down. We also have Army beat Colgate. How about that? What's going on with my computer? It's not showing the scores. 42-17. Here's some MAC scores for you. Central Michigan beat Akron 28-21. The Zips are now 1-6, living up to their tremendous football history. Miami of Ohio loses to BG 17-13. Old Dominion beat Coastal. So that's Coastal Carolina. They were getting some top 25 votes, but they get blasted by ODU by 4 touchdowns. Miami. Virginia Tech's a bad football team. Horrible football team. Miami held on to beat them 20-14. Miami's not good. Buffalo, UMass. Bulls win at 34-7. The aforementioned Colorado win. They will not go 0-12. They beat Cal today. So bad loss for Cal. And if I don't know what's going on with my laptop, it's not populating the scores. They're just sitting there in gray. So there we go. Nothing else to show there. Oh, there it pops up. Ball State beat UConn 25-21. Arkansas, entertaining game against BYU. I picked Arkansas to win this game as a 1.5-point underdog. They were one of my upset picks this week. And yeah, don't know what's going on with my laptop not populating the scores there. So I can't read off the scores. Super chat coming in somewhere. I see it there. There we go. We got the 3 times Unforgiven again. Appreciate that. It's pronounced the Unforgiven. Well, it says 3 times. Anyway, gotcha. The Unforgiven. Go Green. Love you, Mark. Thank you. The Unforgiven. Appreciate that. K9 should have been a Heisman winner. Yes. Kenneth Walker III, I believe you're talking about. It's more clear now he was our offense. Yes. As I've heard it joked about many times, probably Mel Tucker should be sending payments from his contract to Kenneth Walker III. Yeah, it was a bit of a thin team last year that got by with star players. Naylor and Reed on the outside, Peyton Thorne doing his thing, scrambling around, making throws. And, of course, Kenneth Walker III. Absolutely. Liberty goes to 6-1. They beat Gardner-Webb. Maryland was a pretty substantial favorite at Indiana, but had to hang on to win 38-33. Had a big fourth quarter. More MAC scores. Don't you love the MAC? NIU defeats Eastern Michigan 39-10. Kent goes to Toledo. They lose 52-31. And again, our laptop is bugging out on me. There we go. Texas State and Troy. Now, what I attempt to do, everyone, to better serve you, so I actually do my best, but this takes hours to go through every game and look at the box score and to read the recap. Western Kentucky beat Middle Tennessee 35-17. So this is the Middle Tennessee that beat Miami. They lost to James Madison by 37 points. No, 37 points, 44-7. And now they've lost to Western Kentucky by 3 scores. Charlotte loses to UAB. There's the Wisconsin-Michigan State score. Tulane is now 6-1. Will they be in the top 25? That actually makes sense. Their resume is obviously plummeting by the week. They beat South Florida by 14. Louisiana Tech loses at North Texas. Arizona, Washington. Washington 5-2 despite the bad loss last week to Arizona State. They win by 10 at home. Rice and Florida Atlantic. FAU wins by a field goal. There's the LSU game. So consider this. LSU 5-2, 3-1 in the SEC. So if anyone out of either LSU or Ole Miss, those are the two teams that have a shot at Bama. Those are the two because they have either 0 or 1 loss in the conference, have a shot at Bama. Just saying. Ole Miss would be, I think, most people's choice is having the best shot. Utah State beat Colorado State tonight. Louisiana Monroe and South Alabama 41-34. There you see Arkansas State. They lose to Southern Miss 20-19. There's the Stanford win over Notre Dame. And some other games we already talked about. Purdue and Nebraska. Memphis and East Carolina. Look at that barn burner. ECU beats Memphis 47-45. Oh, here's a rivalry game tonight. New Mexico State beat New Mexico 21-9. There's the biggest game that nobody's talking about right there. North Carolina beat Duke 38-35. The Heels are now 3-0 in the ACC. They pulled that out of their tail. Washington State, Oregon State. There's a final 24-10. Air Force over UNLV 42-7. All right. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We will have the top 25 that actually makes sense. We will have conference rankings. We will have power rankings within the conferences. We will have, let's look at, no. Let's look at week 8. Let's see what we're looking at coming up this week. So we've got, let's get this, if I can find this comment. Okay. So we've got a Wednesday night matchup, Georgia State, App State. So for you diehards, you will be watching that on what? ESPN2. Okay, Thursday, Virginia, Georgia Tech has a shot in the ACC Coastal. They've lost one game in the conference to Clemson. If they didn't get tagged with having to play Clemson every year, Georgia Tech would be undefeated right now, most likely in the ACC. But they beat Duke and they beat Pitt the last 2 weeks. So Georgia Tech, big game here. ACC Coastal, Thursday night. Troy and South Alabama. Then on Friday, Tulsa Temple, UAB, Western Kentucky. Okay, Saturday. Here we go. Ohio State hosting Iowa on Fox at noon. Syracuse Clemson playing at noon. That should be a primetime ABC game, right? Let's see what ABC is showing next week. After beating mighty Bama, Tennessee's got a layup against UT Martin. Kansas Baylor, Cincinnati SMU, Indiana Rutgers, Duke Miami. Duke, don't slip up. Keep the pressure on toward the Coastal Division. You can do it. But again, a big loss because now they'll lose the tiebreaker to North Carolina. So they're basically 2 games behind. Actually, Duke lost to Georgia Tech. Forget Duke. They're done. So it's going to come down to North Carolina and Georgia Tech, maybe Pitt. All right. West Virginia, Texas Tech will be a close game. Big game right there. Do you see it there in the Big 12? Top line, Texas at Oklahoma State. Ole Miss, LSU. Big game because the winner will have a shot at Bama. And even if it's Ole Miss losing, they will have a shot at Bama with only 1 loss in the conference. Huge game in the Pac-12 at Autzen Stadium, UCLA, Oregon. Love that one as well. On down the line, Purdue obviously trying to win the West. All right. Memphis, Tulane. The mighty Stanford Cardinal coming off their win against Notre Dame takes on Arizona State. There we go. Mississippi State at Bama. Minnesota at Penn State. Well, the Gophers have already lost twice, and Penn State needs to, and it seems ridiculous right now the way they look today, but they need to beat Ohio State and hope Ohio State beats Michigan. Texas A&M, South Carolina, Kansas State takes on TCU. So look out for TCU. They've looked really good. They've won these 3 straight games against Oklahoma. They blasted the Sooners. They beat Kansas in an entertaining game last week, and then, of course, had the huge comeback against Oklahoma State. Let down possibilities. Kansas State at TCU, big game in the Big 12. And the rest of those games don't matter. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. Top 25 that actually makes sense, and all the good stuff that we provide on a daily basis here at the Voice of College Football. And we'll be back, of course, on Monday night with USC Live. And I believe the boys are still live right now. Let's check it out over on the USC channel. I'm going to guess, the way these guys talk, that they're still live. Heck yeah, they're still live. They are still live. So head on over to the USC channel. I'm going to drop the link. Even see a little preview here. Bam, there you go. No. Hang on. Got to switch my account. USC channel. There it is. There it is. So get on over there. I will drop the link in the chat. Head on over, some more college football talk tonight. USC Live post. So if you go to the bottom of the chat, I have just dropped the link in the chat. Head on over, talk college football. We've got Rick, Tim, we got Matt Zemix there. They got a tremendous cast over there right now on the USC channel. So get on over there right now at the Voice of College Football. Top 25 that actually makes sense coming up tomorrow. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for making this possible here at the Voice of College Football, and we will see you soon. Sorry. Uncle Rico, your mods are out of control in the Pac-12 channel. I want to speak to the manager. All right, Uncle Rico, thank you so much for the super chat. I have no idea what you're talking about, but get on over to the USC channel and we can talk about it there, I guess. No. Uncle Rico, you jumped to conclusions there. You jumped the gun. I got your super chat in, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yes, there you go, One Scoop John. If you've got a complaint, you get an issue, Uncle Rico, that needs some explanation, you can always hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Okay. Over to the USC channel. I'm headed there myself.